Welcome you all in the video session. Myself, Dr. Deepak Rautray, lecturer in statistics. Today, I'll discuss in the topic that is work participation and economy in tribes of Odisha. In that, first of all, we will introduce what is work. Work is defined as the participation in any economically productive activity, job or activity that we do regularly, especially in order to earn money. So such participation may be physical, either mental or in other form of nature. Work relates to various types of activities such as plowing, teaching, officiating, driving, selling, transporting, fishing, agriculture, etc. etc. Work also involves not only actual work but also effective supervision and direction of the work. In that, one should also know about the person who is engaged in economically productive activity for the major period of the year. What he spends on that major period, in which activity he has spent the major period of the year. One of the major aspects of human societies from the very early times in the context of survival and subsistence has been the division of labor, as some people must work for the production of natural wealth in whatever from they work. They are classified as workers. Further, workers are classified according to either sectors of economy. They are engaged in the nature of work they perform, employment status, so as to whether they are employers, employees or independent of workers, and the earning they have all these aspects. So the population of the country can be divided into two broad groups, one of which is known as worker of working population and the other is non-workers. Since long the census classifies the people under different categories, that is of workers, and in doing so provides valuable information on employment status, occupation and economic composition of the people. Who is a worker? That is the main question in this contest. Considering the importance of data on economic activity of the people, a question in this regard in one form or the other has been included. In that, the Indian census from the very beginning, but there is no universally accepted definition of workers by taking the census. It varies from country to country. The definition of workers varies from country to country and even in the same country from census to census. It has not been possible yet to adopt the definition once and for all from time to time. As a result, the data relating to workers and non-workers in a particular census do not agree with the other census data. The definition of workers during 1961 to 2011 census varies from time to time. That is, in 61 census, all the persons who are engaged themselves in any economically productive work, even for a minor period of the year, is treated as worker. But in 71 census, a person who is mostly engaged himself in economically productive work either by physically or mental activity is treated as worker. But according to 1981 census, when we are going to that, who are mostly engaged throughout the year proceeding to the enumeration period is economically productive work are categorized as many workers, and they were known as main workers. Similarly, the person who are basically non-workers but have done some economically productive work in any time in the last year preceding the enumeration are considered are known as the marginal workers. When we will go to the 1991 census, work was defined as participation in economically productive activities such as participation was physical or mental in nature. Now the work involved not only actual work but also effective supervision and direction of work. According to 2001 census, the definition of the workers is something different, has remained almost similar as per the 1981 and 91 census, but in 2001 census, persons engaged in activities relating to milk production, even for purely household consumption, have been regarded as worker. Generally, as for 2011 census, when we are taking the current census, that is, the definition of workers is as same as that of 2001. That is, work is defined as participation in any economically productive activity with or without compensation. Wages or profit, such participation may be physical or mental as per the 2001 census, which will be considered in also 2011 census. There are certain categories of workers we can take. That is, these main workers were divided into 4 categories according to the type of work they did. They are number 1, cultivators, agricultural, number 2, agricultural laborers, number 3, household industry, number 4, other workers. Total population is divided into 3 main groups. These are main workers, marginal workers and non-workers. So workers were divided into 9 categories based on the nature of the work. These we can follow by taking certain tables. By taking those tables, we can identify them as categories of non-workers. The non-workers are also divided into 7 categories as follows. That is, full-time students, household duties, dependents and infants, retired pensions of independent means, and beggars, vagrants, inmates, penal, mental, and others. The trend in work participation rate can be calculated, that is the WPR, which is calculated by using a formula, that is total number of workers of all ages divided by the total population whole into 100. The rate is called crude because the denominator includes even children in 0 to 4 years age group who are not expected to be working. That's why it is known as crude work participation rate. Various tables are given in which from that we can present the data on work participation rate of ST, in which the residents of Odisha and India 1981 to 2011 are shown. These 4 census years have been taken because the data can be compared according to the definition of workers. The WPR of ST was the highest in the year 81 in both Odisha and India. When we will analyze those data of 81 and 2011, we can say the WPR of ST was the highest in case of 81 in both India and Odisha. This has declined from 1981 to 2011. The pattern of all India level was the same as in Odisha. That is, the work participation pattern is the same of India and Odisha. So we can say it in graphically, we can show it, and by taking the rural-urban difference in work participation rate has been studied, and the difference between rural and urban work participation rate observed in rural areas were much higher than urban areas for all the 4 census years in respect of both Odisha and India. In 2011, this difference was higher in Odisha than India. But the rural-urban difference in work participation rate in all India level was higher than in Odisha during 81 and 1991. Now, when we come to the women work participation, they play a vital role in work participation rate. It is always seen that there is a gender inequalities in distribution of resources, benefits, responsibilities in working force. Women playing a very vital role in this work participation, that is the benefits, responsibilities, taking household responsibilities, etc. The census data on workers capture participation of workers by gender in the economic activities. So presented in the data in table on work participation rate by sex during the period from 81 to 11, female STU work participation for the country in 2011 stood at 53.9% and 43.5% respectively. Female work participation rate at all India level was higher than that of Odisha during all the censuses. During these 4 censuses, ST's WPR of the females in both Odisha and India was much less than that of males. Graphically, we can show it in a graph in which we can say it is observed that this gap has been reduced gradually from 1981 to 2011 in Odisha as well as India according to the source 2011 census. The main workers and marginal workers. For the first time in 1981 census, the total population is divided into 3 broad categories: men workers, marginal workers and non-workers. Men workers are those who had worked in some economic activities of the major part of the year, that is for 6 months, and marginal workers are those who had worked for some time during 365 days preceding the day the households was enumerated, but for less than 183 days. So, when we come to the marginal worker and men worker, the analysis reveals that the proportion of men workers out of the total workers has declined significantly from 1981 to 2011. For the state of Odisha and also in India, the said proportion was comparatively much higher in urban areas than rural areas of Odisha and India. The gender difference in the percentage of men workers is more pronounced for Odisha than India. Over the years, it is seen that for the ST, the gender gap has been zigzag in Odisha while it is decreased at all India level. The tribal economy, when we are basing this work participation, then we will go to the economy of the tribe, which is very nearly dependent on that. That is, the tribal economy in the state of Odisha is primarily subsistence oriented and based upon a combination of agriculture, forestry and wage labor. Although tribals were mainly dependent on agriculture, collection from forest continued to play a major role in household consumption and income generation. But the dependence of tribal on forests resources vary from area to area. In some areas with serious deforestation such as Koraput district's collection of forest produces is now declining importance for the tribal economy, which is very important for the tribal economy. When the deforestation is going on at that time, the tribal economy will go down and down. So the general patterns is that there is more dependence on forest among the shifting cultivators and hunter-gatherers and least among the settled agriculturers. With this, the decline in output from forest produce as well as shifting cultivation, tribals as increasingly dependent on seasonal wage labor both as agricultural and unskilled construction workers. Though tribals are usually paid extremely low daily wage, there is evidence of tribal women being paid much less than that of male. Although difficult to establish in monetary terms, the income of most tribal households is substantially lower than 4,000 to 6,000 annually income than the official poverty line of 11,000. The subsistence economy of tribes is based mainly collecting, hunting and fishing, or a combination of hunting and collecting with shifting cultivation. So, in general, if we can say that some subsistence economy tribes is based mainly on collecting, hunting, or a combination of hunting and collecting with shifting cultivation. For example, the Juan, Hill Huya, Lanjeshwara, Kondha, etc., considering the general features of their ecosystem, traditionally economy, supernatural beliefs and practices, and recent impacts of modernization. The tribes of Odisha can be classified into 6 types, such as hunting, collecting and gathering type. Number 2, cattle herder type, simple artisan type, hill and shifting cultivation type, settled agriculture type, and industrial urban worker type. The tribes that practice hill and shifting cultivation are many in northern Odisha, the Juan and Bhuiya, and in southern Odisha, the Kondha and Sora, Koya, Paringa, Didai, Dhaura, and Bondo practice shifting cultivation. The supplement their economy by food gathering, by hunting, as production in shifting cultivation is very low. Shifting cultivation is essentially a regulated sequence of procedure designed to open up and bring under cultivation. So, in case of other things, that is settled agricultural, though they supplement their economy with hunting, gathering and collecting, which were dependent on Ho, Bhumij, Oran, Gonda, Kondha and Mirdha, have taken earning as wage labor to this economic pursuit in order to relieve pressure from their limited land or the resources. In Odisha, the livelihood and survival of tribals largely rests on their access to land and forest. The natural, when we are talking about the natural resources and agriculture, forests are considered common property by tribal communities in Odisha, as is elsewhere in India, are shared equally. Tribals have a strong sense of attachment to the forest as either ancestral territory. However, tribals do not usually practice in forest declared as reserve forest, and their collection of forest produce is restricted. Now, when we are apart from this indigenous system of trekking and check, dams in the off-hill areas, tribals have little access of government sponsored irrigation scheme in the state of Odisha. Most settled agricultural is carried out on the lower hill slopes, which are usually not included in the larger irrigation schemes. Agricultural practices in most part of Odisha among the tribals are characterized by rain-fed annual cropping both on settled and agricultural land, and the total, that is Pudio land on the higher hill slopes. The common annual food crops are millet, sorghum, maize and pulses. In Odisha, hill slopes suitable for shifting cultivation are usually defined as common property of a particular village community, and the boundaries of the particular area is well defined in relation to neighboring areas which were cultivated by other villages. The individual household cultivation on the Podu land has infrastructure rights. The area cultivated by a household depends on a mixture of the following factors known as available household workforce, status in the community, and mutual agreement between household, often governed by the village elders or leaders. The status of women in case of this work participation and economy plays a very vital role. which tribal women play an active role in both affairs and also in providing economic input in some from the other for survival of families. They contribute the major part of the labor required for agriculture and collection of forest produces. In addition to this, they take up wage labor whenever available, in extreme case as it observed in some parts of Odisha. Tribal women even work during night shifts in canal and tunnel excavation work for irrigation project. Women are usually paid less than men for the same labor time in social and household matters. The status of tribal women is generally higher than that of non-tribals. They are often viewed by outsiders as strong and independent, but their relative freedom and visibility far away from villages is tied to a very heavy work burden, and they usually have little influence on village level decision making. In the state of Odisha, according to census 2011, 52.61% among ST comprised of cultivator and agricultural laborers. The said proportion in India was 65%. This is a clear indication that the agriculture sector is dominant, having nearly about 80% contributions. The scenario is more or less same for the state and country. The share of household industry in the main workforce is a very small order, which was 2.58% among STs. And Odisha, as per census 2011, contribution of other industry to the main workforce was 24.41% for STs in Odisha. This pattern was almost the same for the country as a whole. Over the years, contribution of agricultural sector to the workforce has dropped, while that of other agricultural sector to the workforce has dropped, while that of other industry sector has increased significantly, both in Odisha and India. The spiral pattern of work participation says the district-wise work participation sex, which was presented in different fields, as the entire district male WPR was considerably higher than that of the female. The gender difference ranges from 2.46 to 28.05 in case of STs. The total worker comprise men worker, marginal workers. Men workers are those who are engaged for more than 183 days in the year, while the percentage of men worker out of the total workers is an indicator of substantial employment for the population, which represents that percentage of male worker and female workers is very high in that case. And the major trends which was observed in that for above, the work participation rate among total population has increased from 37.35% in 1991 to 38.79% in 2001, while it decreased in case of scheduled tribe from 49.36% to 48.99%. According to 2011 census, the work participation has increased in both cases, that is 41.79% in case of total population and 49.73% among the scheduled tribes. The increasing trend is also observed among male as well as females for both total population and scheduled tribe population. Among the district, higher work participation is found to be in Devgarh district, that is 52.94%, and the lowest in Jaipur, the lowest in Jashpur, that is 30.22%. The highest work participation among ST population is recorded in Bargarh district, that is 55.33%, and the lowest also recorded in Jashpur, that is 34.99%. Coming to the work participation in particular activities, it reveals that agriculture still plays a major role for livelihood improvement for more than 60% of population. However, the agricultural laborers have been increasing while the actual cultivator is declining. Statistics on gender classification indicates that male cultivators are more than the female agricultural laborers in both total population and in case of scheduled tribe population. While in case of female agricultural laborers are more than the cultivators, information on population involved in household industry reflects that according to 2011 census, the percentage of household industry workers to total workers is 4.46% in case of total population, and it is 3.41% in case of scheduled tribe population. Now, the total census further, it is observed that females are more involved in these household industries. Age of the particular group determines the strength of the economy, which was very much dependent on the strength of the economy. The concluded remarks when we are coming and certain recommendation when we will go to, that is, in Odisha the proportion of men workers among female workers were relatively much lower than that of the female, which is a great constraint. This shows the comparatively higher proportion of female workers was employed in a marginal manner. The gender difference in the percentage of men workers is more pronounced for Odisha than India. Over the years, it is seen that for the ST, the gender gap has been given a zigzag in Odisha while it has decreased at all India level. The recommendations, that is, all the majority of STs have land and cultivation is their main occupation. Water for agriculture is the greatest impediment in production, which is a major aspect. And in order to make use of the land available of the tribal farmers, they should be motivated to undertake organic farming and eco-forestry. And there is a dire need to establish agro-based training institution and related labor-intensive processing industry in the tribal regions. Thank you, sir.